This is the most important thing you're going to do today.
There is no writer's block.
If you're up at 4 a.m., nobody's calling you and there's no email pouring in.
Dan Brown is the author of numerous #1 best-selling novels, including the Da Vinci Code, which has become one of the best-selling novels of all time. His novels are published in 56 languages around the world, with over 200 million copies in print. He's had his books adapted to films starring A-list talent such as Tom Hanks, and you could even find a season of The Lost Symbol that was based on his best-selling thriller on Peacock. In 2019, my husband and I found ourselves working on a farm, and at the end of a hard day of working with the cows and the goats, I would cozy up to my laptop and work my way through Dan Brown's masterclass. There were takeaways from his course that I have now applied to my writing, but I have always wanted to challenge myself to try his writing routine. Now, this past weekend, I hosted a table read where my friends and I worked our way through a screenplay that I've been working on for the past few months.
Thanks, guys.
And if there's one thing that I love to procrastinate, it's digesting notes. So in my best attempt to face the feedback, I thought this would be an ideal time to try Dan Brown's writing routine, because this would mean that I would have to sit down, avoid all distractions, and do the work. So this is the gist of what makes up Dan Brown's writing process. He starts at 4 a.m., he finishes at 11 a.m., he sets himself up for success by writing a couple of sentences or a paragraph or even a chapter so that he's got something to work with when he comes back the next day. And then at the start of every hour, he does a couple of push-ups and sit-ups. Seems simple enough, right? Wrong. I originally planned to do Dan Brown's writing process for a whole week. I'm embarrassed to tell you how far I got. I mean, I almost scrapped this entire video just because of how pathetic my attempt was. However, I decided to push through with this piece of content because we can't win all the time. And like the saying goes, starting is the hardest part, and well, I managed to do that. So let me give you a look inside my experience where I tried out Dan Brown's writing process, and it all started the night before as I was prepping to start the challenge.
I am at my desk at 4 o'clock every day, 365 days a year. That is my process. That's my time.
Sure, Dan Brown does say that he's at his desk at 4 a.m., but he doesn't specify what time he wakes up. So this allowed me to take creative liberty with this detail. I'm gonna wake up at 4 and literally brush my teeth and then roll straight into this. I have read that he likes to make a smoothie and a coffee, so I'll do that during one of the breaks, but I've just set myself up with some water. The time now is almost 8:15. I'll go to bed in probably the next half an hour or so. I read that Dan goes to bed at 10. I doubt I will survive tomorrow if I go to bed at 10. So I am planning to get to bed before 9 so that I can be up fresh, hopefully, at 4 tomorrow morning. You see, I was so naive. I'm somebody who gets pre-race jitters. This means that I cannot sleep the night before a big race, a big social event, an important meeting, or a challenge like this that pushes me out of my comfort zone. So what I'm getting at is that I find it difficult to fall asleep. I toss and I turn, and I struggle to get my brain to quiet down. And if this wasn't enough, my baby is teething at the moment. So at around midnight, I was dreading a 4 a.m. start. Needless to say, when my alarm went off, I was not enthusiastic to wake up. But I did stick to the plan. I rolled out of bed, I went and brushed my teeth, and then I headed straight to my office just after 4 a.m. to start working. I started by reviewing notes from my table read that I held this past weekend. After reviewing the feedback from the handout, I went through the scripts to pick up spelling errors that were circled by my actors. I also searched for additional notes that were added to the physical copy of the screenplay. There were dialogue suggestions, feedback on specific scenes, as well as other brilliant notes that could take my story to the next level. I then organized all of these notes into story and spelling notes. The plan was to address the spelling first and then focus on the story notes later. As I mentioned earlier, one of the things Dan Brown does is at the top of every hour, he breaks up his writing by doing a few push-ups and sit-ups.
I got an application for my computer called Timeout that every hour shuts down my computer for 1 minute. There's nothing you can do. The screen goes dark. And I get up and I do a few push-ups, a few sit-ups, get my blood pressure going, and I find that I can go back into that next hour with a little bit of energy.
So for a minute or two, I did some movement, and then I got back and started the next session. The goal for the next session was to outline the scenes that needed to be included or adjusted. I brainstormed multiple variations of these scenes until I found what seemed to fit best. Again, when it was the start of a new hour, 6 a.m., I did some more push-ups and sit-ups, and then after that, I got straight back into the next session where I continued fleshing out these scenes. Just before 7 a.m., my kiddos woke up, so I paused the challenge and I went to spend a bit of time with them. My husband and I, we tag teamed spending time with the kids, so one of us had time to shower up and get ready for the day. And when we were both ready and the kids were ready, they then went off to school. Before coming back to my office to continue with the challenge, I first went to go make myself a cup of coffee. Now, I have also read that Dan Brown likes to make the ultimate coffee, and these are the ingredients that he is said to use when putting his cup of joe together. Now, I didn't use Dan Brown's recipe because, as my local coffee spot will tell you, I'm no fun. Literally, when I order a cup of coffee, they'll shout, "One no fun Americano, please." And that's because after the challenge I did last year where I quit coffee for 100 days, I still haven't gone back to coffee. I am still drinking decaf. Anyway, I poured myself a generous amount of decaf coffee along with some milk and then came back to my office to start the next session. I'm no stranger to waking up at 5 a.m., but 4 a.m. is a completely different ballgame. I'm not a quitter, but when I was getting ready just now, I'm not gonna lie, I thought of giving up. This is pretty exhausting. I could go straight back to sleep right now. That said, I am surprised how much I have got done already. It would usually take me a day or two, maybe even 3, before I get back into my script or start a rewrite, and I'm about to do that now, so huge progress. I worked my way through the list of spelling errors and then went on to adjust some scenes, add some new scenes, and adjust some dialogue as well. And at the top of every hour, I still did some exercise. It's freezing here, probably the coldest it's been the whole year, so it's nice to break up the writing sessions with a bit of movement, get the blood flowing, clear the brain. I maintained this pattern of writing and movement, but at 9 a.m. my hunger cues were pretty strong, so it was time to break for some breakfast. I'm quite hungry. Ideally, I would love some warm oats right now, but I read that Dan Brown loves a good smoothie, so I'm guessing it's smoothie time. This is what I read that Dan likes to include in his smoothies, but I don't have any of that shit, and I didn't prepare well enough to buy in advance, so I'm just going to use what I have at home and whip something together. The next hour was made up of more writing as well as snacking on a smoothie, and before I knew it, it was 10 a.m. You know what that means. I'm literally in the final hour now. Can't believe how much I've managed to get done. Needless to say, the final hour flew. I even managed to set the table for breakfast before my alarm went off. I'm blown away that I've been up since 4. I did have about an hour where I was getting the kids ready for school and then getting ready for the day, so I didn't do the entire 7-hour stint. I think it's 7 hours. But I am blown away with what I was actually able to do in this time. I'm not exaggerating. I think it would have taken me about a week to do what I've managed to do this morning. So I'm pumped. As some of you know, I do freelance work. So my real day starts now, and I've got so much work ahead of me for the rest of the day that I actually feel a little bit overwhelmed. As energized as I am thinking about what it is that I've been able to do, thinking about what I still have to do is quite daunting. And then I really didn't get a good sleep last night, so being aware that, I have to wake up so early for the next couple of days, it just isn't making me feel pretty pumped about life. And I know I'm really in my head at the moment, and I'll maybe get over it later. But yeah, this is an honest reflection of how I'm feeling right now. As the day progressed, my energy levels tanked. And yeah, looking back on it now, it does seem like I was in a bit of a negative headspace, and it looked like I was thinking up every excuse that I could to quit the challenge, but I did quit after one day. This has got to be my worst attempt at a challenge so far. That said, it would be interesting to know if Dan Brown has kids and if he was able to continue with his writing process while his kids were toddlers. I mean, if he does have kids and he was able to keep up with this writing process, then maybe he's superhuman. Mad respect, my guy. But for me, this was too hard, especially in this season. However, I'm not writing it off. I actually think this may be the perfect technique for my first day back writing after receiving some notes. There's something about starting at 4 a.m. where it's too early to procrastinate or self-sabotage, so I find it less intimidating to look at feedback or make some changes. As I mentioned, I got a lot done, and even though it's a few days since I actually did the challenge, I am so proud of myself for what I managed to achieve in that time. It's the first time that I had spent close to 7 hours just writing, and it's interesting to reflect on because that's what a full-time writer's day looks like. So I'm looking forward to when my writing career takes off, because allocating so much time to the craft, man, that's exciting. But while I'm living that freelance life, as well as getting the little sleep due to the parenting stage of life I'm in, I'll be sticking to my own writing routine. But how about you? What's your writing routine? And let me know in the comments if there's a writing routine of another writer that you'd like me to test out. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel if you'd like to see more content from me in the future. I will leave a video for you in the end screen that I think you'll enjoy. So I'll see you in the next video. Take care, guys. Bye.